The 2024 Summer Olympics rolls on in Paris with more competitions on Sunday. So let's talk about the headlines surrounding the 33rd Olympiad with a journalist and TV host. Her name is Julia Sun, and she joins me now in studio. Julia,
hi,
how you doing?
good to see you.
Great to see you too. Finally in person.
I know, right?
I'm really happy. How are you enjoying these Olympic Games so far?
I'm loving them. I mean, I love the stories of all these Olympic athletes because they have sacrificed so much to get there. Some of them, they're first-time Olympians. Sometimes they're repeats. And whatever their background is, they're trying their best and bring home the medals.
They're trying to bring home the medals, particularly a gold. They'd like to do that. And speaking of gold, we got to talk about somebody who has a lot of them. That is Simone Biles. And on Sunday, we saw Mrs. Biles successfully qualify for the women's gymnastics all-around final. Now, she did it where we even saw that she got injured, returned back, and still was able to do this, get the highest score for qualification in that qualification round with a total of 5.9.566. That score, Julia, would have won the last two world championships. And she was injured, folks. So I got to ask you this, Julia. What else do you expect from the woman we call the GOAT of gymnastics at these games and beyond? What else do you expect?
I expect phenomenal routines. We're talking about the best athletes, one of the best athletes in the world, male and female, current and retired. I think at some point in the middle of her routine, she might give us a wink or a nod or a look that says, oh my God, I could have done that better. Oh my God, I've done that better in practice, etc. But that would still be out in the stratosphere if you compare it to regular international competition level standard, right? But what I think she brings to the competition table is so much more than just what she does on the floor. Look, when I think about the Summer Olympic Games, there are a lot of iconic images that flash by, and one of the images that I have to go with is Kerri Strug when she landed the vault landing back in 1996 in Atlanta. Her coach, Bella Caroli, carried her off the competition floor. All the cameras rushed her way and said, oh my God, she's going to be a national hero. And she did become a national hero. But I got to say, for the longest time, nobody talked about the fact that Kerri, in reality, didn't have the choice to not compete that day. Bella Caroli and Marta Caroli, who was the national coordinator, she was the one who could pick the U.S. national team, they abused the athletes. We know that now, but at the time we just thought, oh my God, they're so great, they go for it. So over the years, nobody really spoke out because they couldn't. Simone Biles was really the first person on an international level who challenged that ideology of medals first. Medals are so much more important than your personal safety, than your personal well-being. She is the first person to challenge that philosophy on an international level. And to be fair to the Carolis, it's not just them who thinks medals are more important than your personal well-being. It's the sports problem, and a lot of countries' national team, they believe that. If they want the medals, they don't want, I mean, it's not that they don't care about your safety, but they place that, it's a secondary thing. And what I think the most important message Simone Biles left the sports world, and I happen to agree with, is as an athlete, you have and should have the option to prioritize your safety over other concepts, such as national pride, which I know is very important, but you have the choice to say, okay, it's more important than my well-being. Or in some cases, I've interviewed quite a few athletes, and they told me, you know what, I don't care if I die tomorrow, I just want to win.
And that's their personal choice.
Yeah, that is their personal choice. But it should not be a coach, an admin, a team coordinator, not even the president or the prime minister of your country to decide whether you compete or not if you're injured.
And what I find interesting with that, is we know in the previous games, what was the 2020 games, she decided to not compete further because of her safety and mental health, and now she's back competing. She does get injured on Sunday, but she was able to push through, and we don't know what mental space she's in, but we know she's a phenomenal athlete, and we expect her to do great things.
Yeah,
and
during the U.S. Olympic trial, I remember her saying she's seeing a therapist regularly.
Yes.
That's taking care of herself, and I expect great things. In fact, after the Olympic Games, I expect her to do more advocacy work for mental health institutions, mental health treatments. It's just something that's necessary in life. It's not a luxury.
Absolutely is necessary. We'll see what Simone Biles can do the rest of the way here in these Olympic Games. Now, swimming competitions, they got underway on Saturday, Julia, but there's a lot of talk around swimming because there's an anti-doping scandal that's feeding doubts about the sport's cleanliness. Can you tell to people what happened with this anti-doping scandal and how have U.S. athletes responded?
I wish this is not a thing. And by the way, can I take a moment to shout out to Team USA? The phenomenal run during the 400-meter team relay.
Absolutely.
Caleb, Hunter, Chris, Jack, we're so proud of you. And Caleb Dressel, he was one of the people who got asked, well, are you confident that the relevant authorities and governing body are making sure the sport is staying clean? And his answer was rather blunt. He said, no, not really. And that's a quote from him, by the way. So what happened was back in 2021, 23 Chinese swimmers tested positive for a banned substance called TMZ. It is a heart medication. It is banned because it can potentially boost a person's endurance. So yes, people are not supposed to take it. If you're an athlete, you're not supposed to take it. So what happened was, instead of reporting the incident right away to the World Anti-Doping Agency, the Chinese Anti-Doping Agency, they reported 2 months later. And they did it privately. They did not publicize about this 23 doping cases. They did not publicize about this 23, cases, and then they just sort of swept it under the rug. And at the time, because it was during the middle of the COVID, WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, didn't even have a chance to fly in there to investigate further. And nobody knew about this for about 3 years, and then fast forward to about April 2024. New York Times and a German broadcaster called ARD, they uncovered this story. And understandably, the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency was mad as hell. They're like, we're going to run our own investigation. This is not fair. And there has been a Justice Department probe. At the end of the day, I don't think either probe is going to lead to anything, because we're not going to be given any access to any of the original data or samples.
Right.
It's been more than 3 years, but it really undermines the confidence, the integrity of the sports. Some of the Team USA athletes, swimmers, and other athletes, they have been speaking out about this, and they said, well, it's not great. It's not great. It's really just unfair to other people, and it's frustrating. I hear the word frustrating a lot. However, nobody is directing the criticism towards any one of the athletes. It's a systemic problem. You condone, or as a country, the governing body of sports, you condone that behavior and you try to sponsor it in a way, allegedly. And that's not cool.
And that's definitely not cool. Not cool for the sport, not cool for people who want to watch the best athletes compete, healthy, in a healthy way, in a safe way, in a good competitive way. That's not what you want to see. Got to move on to another sport. Tennis. We saw the women's flag bearer for Team USA, Coco Gauff. She breezed into the next round, Julia. 6-3, 6-0 straight sets victory over Ajla Tomljanovic. Gauff got her first Grand Slam title at the U.S. Open last year. Do you think her adding a gold medal, she's one of the best players in the world, can that set her up for success again at next month's U.S. Open and also beyond?
Yes, absolutely. You know, the funny thing was, when Coco got her title, U.S. Open title in 2023, I was there. I was with my producer there, and we just celebrated the whole day. It was such a hot day.
As it is sometimes at the US Open.
But we were there. It was just awesome. We also saw Novak, and, you know, he played really well, even though the American, spectators are like, no, we don't want you to win. But,
against him.
You know how it goes. So the thing for Coco is she's such an inspiration to younger athletes, and now she's making her Olympic debut, and she's doing really well. What she needs to make sure is she gets enough sleep, downtime, recovery time between the Olympic Games and the U.S. Open. That's the key factor for her, and I think her coaching staff is all over that. I think she's going to have enough recovery time, I believe. You know, it's not uncommon for some of the athletes, elite athletes, to skip over key games in preparation for even more important key games at a future date, but nobody is going to skip over the Olympics. It's just not something you say no to. But I think if she does well at the Olympic Games, it'll set her up for future success for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know she's very excited about it. One of the best, if not the best, American.
And what I find interesting is Coco says she keeps a list on her phone, as we all do, but her list has a list of goals, a list of targets she wants to hit in her life. One of those things, one of the items, she says, I just want to win an Olympic medal. I don't care what sport it's in.
Just wants the Olympic medal.
She just wants it. I mean, I don't see her playing another sport at that level just yet, but never say never.
Hey,
I mean, we've
know.
covered some, multi-disciplined, multi-talented athletes before. You can switch to something else later. So I want to know what else she has in mind.
Don't rule it out for her. I would like to know what else she has in mind. What else would she like to win an Olympic medal in? I want to talk to you about some business things around the Olympics, because with a budget of approximately $9.7 billion, the Paris 2024 Olympics is one of the most economical. I know that sounds crazy with $9.7 billion, but it's one of the most economical Summer Olympics in recent history. So the question here is simple, Julia. What did organizers do to keep the costs down at this Olympic Games?
Well, they are able to keep it down because 95% of the necessary venues had already been built. They could repurpose a lot of the buildings, and I'm not just talking about stadiums or arenas. I'm also talking about bridges and a river with a long history. So you don't really have to build everything new. Usually with a new Olympic host, yes, you have to build a lot of public transit systems, you have to build a lot of hotels, you have to build a new Olympic Village, you have to build so many facilities that the athletes have to compete in, right? But with Paris, they already got most of things, so they're able to keep it down. The Rio 2016 Olympics, that one ran, I believe, $13.1 billion, and they actually incurred a $2 billion loss after that. The London 2012 Olympics is about that same number. Tokyo was such a unique situation, so I call it an outlier because the cancellation, postpone, you have to redo all the ticketing, you have to postpone all the broadcast licensing rights, et cetera, et cetera. It was a nightmare. I don't want to deal with it. So yes, they lost a lot of money, but that was a one-time thing. In Paris, however, they're saying, you know what, there are things we can't cut, such as transportation for the athletes, the security protocols, etc. But anything else that is not necessary, that doesn't need a new construction, they're saying, okay, let's just not do it. You and I actually talked about it. I know we have to go soon, but you and I talked about the 2018 Pyeongchang Olympics. They built a stadium. It was something like $109 million US. That stadium, I reported at the time, that it was only used 4 times.
That was it, 4 times.
And then including the opening ceremony before it was demolished. I saw there was an estimate by the sports management department at the University of Michigan. They were estimating that the cost of use per hour was $10 million. That's ridiculous.
No, the money said there is definitely ridiculous. And that's things that people have had a lot of problems with the Olympics, and why we're talking about this is the cost, how there's been money put into these buildings, and then sometimes they're never used. We saw this with Athens going back in 2004. So that's always the thing. But Paris doing it right, keeping the costs low, only 9.7. I know it sounds crazy.
I know,
folks.
it sounds crazy.
$9.7 billion. That is Julia Sun, a great reporter, covers a lot of the business of sports. Huge fan of the Olympics, and she'll be talking more Olympic stuff with us throughout these Olympic Games. Julia, keep enjoying the Olympics. We'll do this again soon.
Yeah, okay.
We'll do it again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see you soon.